What's poppin', my bad witches and agathaughts? It is me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. This is about to be a breakdown for episodes 8 and 9 of Agatha All Along, the big finale. So I'm just gonna stop yapping and just get into this thing. Follow Me, My Friend, to Glory at the End is the title of episode 8 of Agatha All Along, and it starts off with the soul of Alice Wu Gulliver lying on the ground of the house from the third trial. But as Alice comes to, she's immediately greeted by Rio Vidal, aka Death, who points to where her actual physical body lays lifeless after her attempt to save Agatha went to shit and got her ass turned into a dried ass raisin. In disbelief, Alice says, "That's it? That's all the time I get?" To which Death basically replies, "If I had a nickel for every time I heard that," implying that most people usually react that way when they die. I mean, hell, we would even see Agatha act that way in the finale when she would beg Death for more time with her son. However, Death saying the phrase, "if I had a nickel," also makes me feel like this is a slight nod to Karen, the mythical ferryman of the dead, who usually demands a coin from the recently deceased in order for them to be ferried to the next life. But despite Alice's unreadiness to move on to the land of the dead, she reluctantly follows Death to the afterlife anyway. And boy was I shocked that Marvel actually straight up killed Alice, Lilia, and Sharon in a permanent manner in this series, because I was damn sure that Marvel was going to use some Mickey Mouse ass magic to make sure that this narrative ended with a "and everyone lived happily ever after" type deal, but nope. Agatha straight up slurped the life out of Alice before Alice had the time to actually change her life in a meaningful way after the destruction of her family curse. In the very way that Alice disappears with Death in that heavy fog of green smoke was such a haunting reminder that Death doesn't really care about anyone's future plans and can come take us at any moment. Then the scene transitions to a distraught Jennifer Kale, shocked at the sacrifice of her sister in the craft, Lilia. And as Billy comforts her, we cut to Agatha on the surface of this green area of the road where she runs into the original Green Witch herself. Death then remarks about how satisfied she is about all the bodies Agatha managed to pile up in her latest Witches Road scam, but that she's also frustrated that Agatha was deliberately trying to keep the secret of Billy Maximoff's reincarnation from her by distracting her, because apparently to Death, Billy Maximoff's very existence is an abomination that disrupts something that she calls the sacred balance, which, if you watch my explainer on the character of Death during last week's breakdown, you'll know refers to the overall cosmic balance between light and life and darkness and death that the cosmic entity Death is partially in charge of maintaining. Billy Maximoff's existence is an abomination to the natural order of things because his soul was never supposed to exist in this plane of reality in the first place. Billy shoving his wandering soul into the body of a dying Billy Kaplan prevented Billy Kaplan's corpse from returning to the ground and contributing to the overall cosmic balance of all things. And we all know from the 2021 Eternals movie just how important this cosmic balance is to all the planets in the cosmos, as the energies from all those who pass away are meant to contribute to the growth of the celestial seed inside of every life-abundant planet. So Death kinda has a point here, and Billy really should not be existing outside the Hex at all. And like I brought up before in a previous week, Death's motivations very much mirror that of Thanos the Mad Titan in the MCU, because he was all about that balanced life as well. But anyways, while Death continues to talk to Agatha, she actually starts to reveal that the entire Witch's Road doesn't exist at all before Agatha cuts her off by yelling at her to stop talking, which was actually a very nice piece of foreshadowing towards Billy's eventual realization of the world that he's created from the depths of his imagination at the very end of this episode. I do want to talk about that actually, because the revelation that the Witch's Road was actually created from the mind of Billy Maximoff kind of feels sort of in line with the science of afterlives in the MCU. Because whether it be Asgard from Norse mythology, the Duat from Egyptian mythology, the Wakandan ancestral plane, or even the land of the infinite sky that Rocket and his Batch 89 buddies believed in during their captivity, it seems like the power of enough believing minds are able to create entire extra-dimensional planes of existence. And if the power of belief is strong enough, something that was originally a story could easily become a new plane of reality. However, because witches like both Wanda and her son Billy are so powerful enough on their own, they are able to use their own inner power to generate entire pocket realities that they believe in the most at will. just through the powers of their own minds. I don't know, just a little theory / observation here. But anyways, Death then goes on to say that no one in history has ever gotten as much special treatment from Death as Agatha has gotten, which is kind of a big deal considering that Death has been around since the very beginning of the cosmos itself. And that line also sort of verifies that this version of Death in the MCU has likely never actually formed a relationship with the Mad Titan Thanos over the course of the hundreds of years that he was alive, much like we see happen in the original Marvel comics. Because, like I went over in my previous Agatha breakdowns, comic book Death gave Thanos a whole lot of special treatment in the source material, so much so that she was the one who basically made him the Mad Titan that he was in the first place. Death then asks Agatha why she lets everyone believe that she traded her son Nicholas Scratch for the copy of the Darkhold, to which Agatha replies that the truth was far too awful, to which my ass then replied, "Really, Agatha? The real truth was that he died in his sleep next to you in the forest. How is that more awful than having everyone believe that you sold your child to a demon for magic crack in a book?" But anyways, a little bit later, Death states that Billy's desire to save the soul of his brother Tommy is a direct cosmic violation, saying that while Tommy isn't physically alive yet, he soon would be in the near future, showing us that this Green Witch appears to have a strong authority over the manipulation of time itself, much like how Doctor Strange and the Ancient One were able to peer into the future using the Green Time Stone. And because Death foresaw Billy using his power as the son of the Scarlet Witch to save his brother Tommy, it was her cosmic duty to make sure that Billy didn't twist the laws of the cosmos yet again just to add yet another life to this already overpopulated cosmos. However, as much as Death would want to, she apparently cannot take Billy with her by force, because Billy has the power to move his soul from one body to the next at the moment of his death. So the only way for Billy to actually die is for him to willingly let Death take him, leading Agatha to promise Death to get Billy to do just that in exchange for Rio to stop actively pursuing Agatha's own death, with the added caveat that when Agatha dies, Rio won't be the one to appear to take her to the afterlife, a promise that could have had an influence on Agatha eventually becoming a ghost when she died, as that shows that Rio didn't end up collecting her soul at all. This would also serve to explain why Rio hates ghosts so much, because ghosts are basically beings that refuse to go to the afterlife with her, much like Agatha did here. But then at the very end of their conversation, Rio whips out her knife and literally tears open the background of the set in order to take her leave. An illustration of Rio literally tearing the fabric of reality at will. We of course saw something similar to this in the post-credit scene for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, when Clea used one of her knives to open a tear in reality to send both her and Strange to the Dark Dimension. But anyways, Billy and Jennifer then catch up with Agatha, and they continue on the green area of the Witch's Road until they inexplicably make their way back to the very start of the Witch's Road, where all the witches of the Coven left their shoes behind before walking on the road in reverence. Jennifer gets emotional when looking at the shoes of Sharon, Alice, and Lilia before Billy defiantly puts his shoes back on in rejection of the Witch's Road as a whole. And as soon as Billy does this, the camera pans underground to the following scene inside of a morgue modeled after Agatha's basement, with the center of the ground in this morgue even holding the same pentagon shape that formed when the door to the road opened for them all in episode 2. And after the three of them free themselves from their respective body bags, Jennifer's resolve to protect both Agatha and Billy from sharing Sharon, Alice, and Lilia's fate comes out in full force, thus completing Jennifer's inner journey from a con artist who only cares about herself to a proper witch that is dedicated to the preservation of life. A selfless characterization that is more in line with the Jennifer Kale from the Marvel comics. And with this inner transformation realized, now all Jennifer Kale needs is her magical powers back. And luckily for her, she would soon discover that it was Agatha herself who bound her from using magic 100 years ago in the past when she was living and working in Boston, Massachusetts in the 1920s. And as soon as Jennifer learns this life-shattering truth, she rips off a chunk of Agatha's hair and performs an unbinding ritual, a ritual that requires the caster to repeatedly deny a curse's power over them until they are free. And as soon as Jennifer completes the ritual, she gets incredibly emotional at the return of her witch abilities that appear to manifest as a pinkish purple magic energy, which is actually quite interesting. But pretty much as soon as these powers return, Jennifer disappears from the road completely, finally finally attaining what she was looking for the entire time. We would of course see Jennifer again in the following episode when she claws her way out from underground Westview before flying away. I would not be surprised in the least if Jennifer Kale ended up joining Doctor Strange, Wong, and all of the Knights of Kamar-Taj now that she is all about protecting other people with her magic abilities. And hell, we might just see Jennifer Kale appear in a Midnight Suns project, as Jennifer Kale in the comics has been a part of that group in the past. After this, Agatha then tells Billy to sit down on the ground with her so that they can find his brother Tommy, but more specifically, find his brother Tommy another body. Because apparently, the implication seems to be that Tommy has been inside of Billy the entire time, with both of their souls joining together at the very moment that Wanda's Westview hex collapsed. And in order to tap into Tommy's soul, Agatha then has Billy to match the breathing patterns Tommy was exhibiting right before the hex disappeared. And while he's doing this, Agatha tells Billy that he doesn't have to open his eyes to know how close Tommy is to him, and that Billy has been breathing for Tommy this entire time, as he's been carrying around Tommy's essence, Tommy's memories, and Tommy's feelings with him for the past 3 years. But Agatha then tells Billy that he cannot keep his brother trapped inside of him anymore, and pushes him to find a body for Tommy. Billy then uses his magic powers to locate a boy nearby who was being drowned by his friends as part of a prank gone wrong, with the implication being that Billy stored Tommy's soul into that boy's body at the moment of his death. And this boy's name is likely Thomas Shepard, as that is of course the name of the reincarnated Tommy Maximoff in the Marvel Comics. And also notice how this drowning Tommy Shepard is wearing a green top, much like how Tommy Maximoff wore green in both Wandavision as well as the original Marvel Comics. And taking a look at Tommy Shepard's shoes, I noticed how the design on the side of his shoe almost looks like a yin-yang symbol of sorts, possibly a slight symbolic nod to how Tommy and Billy's souls have been intertwined this entire time. But the very second that Billy succeeds at reincarnating Tommy, he disappears from the trial, getting what he wanted out of the road, just like Jennifer did. However, Billy does disappear right before Agatha can reassure him that he didn't just help a group of douchebags drown an innocent kid for his own benefit, which was kind of inconvenient. But what was super convenient for Agatha was the dandelion seed that was hidden behind the chunk of Nikki Scratch hair inside of her brooch, as she would use that seed to plant new life, allowing her to free herself from the final trial. Emerging onto her front yard, Agatha immediately notices Death just chilling on the top of her house. And super angry that Agatha went back on their deal, Death threatens Agatha with death by 1,000 cuts, a reference to the ancient form of torture called Ling Chi from imperialist China, which involves someone using a knife to slowly and methodically cut tiny pieces off of someone until they eventually died. But as Death attacks Agatha, the sky around Westview in the real world begins to glow green, matching the green skies of the Witch's Road, causing Agatha's neighbors John Collins, Abelash Tandon, and Harold Proctor to wonder if more witch bullshit was about to go down like it did 3 years ago. Then soon after this, Death would fulfill Lilia's prophecy and call Agatha a coward, prompting Agatha to follow Lilia's advice and hit the deck before Death literally throws the kitchen sink at her. But before Death could deal Agatha a killing blow, in comes Billy Maximoff in his comic book accurate costume to save the day, with full mastery over his magic abilities now for some reason. Billy then refuels Agatha's power with his own, trusting her to not take all of it for herself, which she doesn't, surprisingly. Then Death uses her own powers to face off against a fully powered Agatha, with these green witch powers over the manipulation of gravity appearing to be the same type of green magic science that Shang-Chi's mom and aunt used in the Shang-Chi movie. Even though it looks like airbending, I think this is literally just gravity manipulation. But anyways, eventually, with Death giving Agatha and Billy the choice for one of them to die so the other can live, Agatha would pull a Black Widow and sacrifice her life for someone that she cared about. A sacrifice in the form of a kiss of death from Death herself. And as soon as the kiss is over, Agatha falls to the ground before her body instantaneously starts rapidly aging and decaying, likely a representation of what Agatha's corpse would have looked like by now if she didn't prolong her lifespan by absorbing the life force of others over centuries. However, the moment that Agatha dies and sacrifices herself for Billy, check out how the green sky opens up and reveals the orange sunlight from the realm of humanity, the final ending phase of the Witch's Road. thus completing the theme of each part of the Witch's Road being colored after the order the Infinity Stones appeared in the MCU, with the real world representing the orange Soul Stone, which makes sense considering that Earth is where all the souls of mankind live, and also where untethered souls like Jennifer's, Tommy's, and Agatha's can all find new life in their own way. Like, this episode was all about the unbinding of souls. But yeah, after picking up Agatha's locket, Death speaks to Billy in their true cosmic voice, giving him permission to leave now that the balance has been maintained, with her voice being harmonized with the deep voice of another man, underscoring the idea that the cosmic entity Death itself can be represented as any gender or form that it deems necessary, just like Death in the comics. After this, Billy then walks off of Agatha's property while getting stared at in fear by all of Agatha's neighbors, causing Billy to throw his hood over his head to hide his face, much like the Scarlet Witch did at the end of Wandavision. Billy then heads back home where he discovers that it's been 24 hours since he left to go on his adventure. Evading his parents' questions about where he's been, Billy takes a shower and then heads back to his room, where we can see a poster for the Rocky Horror Picture Show next to a Buffy the Vampire Slayer poster for the musical episode from Season 6, Episode 7, titled Once More with Feeling. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was of course a show invented by Joss Whedon, who also directed the first and second Avengers movies, and also the downfall of his own career. So it's kind of weird that Joss Whedon himself also technically now exists in the MCU. And not far from those posters is a poster for 1986's Poltergeist 2, and this Haxan poster depicting a woman and a demon flirting with one another, a relationship reflective of both Agatha and Rios. But anyways, Billy then takes a long look around his room full of stuff and notices that everything in his room seems to have inspired the Witch's Road. From his obsession with the Wizard of Oz, to multicolored leaves, to his Ouija board, this Lorna Wu poster, literally everything. Agatha's earlier joke about Billy getting the shoes of the deceased witches bronzed is even a reference to the bronze shoes on Billy's shelf. This entire time, Billy has accidentally tapped into his vast cosmic power to create his own reality based on the pieces of cinema history that appeal to him, just like his mother Wanda did in Westview with the pieces of media that resonated with her the most growing up. And this is also very much in line with Billy Maximoff's namesake, William Shakespeare, who was also really big into theater. And the episode of course ends with Billy getting frightened by the sudden appearance of Agatha Harkness in her ghostly form, a form that Agatha Harkness is no stranger to in the comics, as comic Agatha has been summoned from beyond the grave multiple times in the past to aid witches like Wanda with various problems, because she's cool like that. Then we were hit with episode 9, titled Maiden Mother Crone, with the episode starting with a maiden Agatha in the year 1750 about to become a mother. But instead of a happy birthday for her son Nicholas Scratch, Death herself shows up in her fancy green dress to take Nicholas Scratch away from Agatha before he's even born. And as Death approaches Agatha, you can tell that she really does not want to take Nikki's life away from Agatha, as Death truly does care for Agatha as a person. However, since she is the Green Witch, Death does have the authority to offer Nicholas Scratch more time that Agatha would use every minute of to bond with her son. A few days after his birth, as Agatha and a newborn Nikki make their way through the forest, Agatha comes across a group of forest witches who graciously invite her into their protection circle to eat, with Agatha's crossing over their magical protective barrier of rocks appearing to trigger the very magical protection energy coursing through those rocks, almost as a warning to the witches that they really shouldn't have let this crazy-ass witch in. But unfortunately, they would not have long to regret their decision, as Agatha would waste no time in sucking out all of their souls. And there truly is no wonder why Agatha would mention a run-in with the Daughters of Liberty back in episode 4. Because if she was roaming around 1750s America sucking out everyone's souls, a conflict with the Daughters of Liberty would be pretty much inevitable, as that group was founded during this time period during America's founding. But anyways, years pass, and Agatha teaches her son how to bait human beings to her so that she can suck their souls out for food. An act that Nicholas Scratch doesn't exactly vibe with, as he would rather live peacefully with all these witches. We then soon learn that it was Nicholas Scratch himself who came up with the melody for the Ballad of the Witch's Road, with both him and his mother eventually working together to morph the original lyrics from Down the Windy Road to Down the Witch's Road over time. And during a montage of their time together, we can also see Nicholas picking up a dandelion and blowing on it, establishing the reason why a dandelion seed would be found amongst a chunk of Nicholas' hair in the last episode, with Nicholas accidentally saving his mother's life years in the past. But anyways, we would soon see Nicholas taking his witch's ballad on the road, as Agatha would force him to sing the song for both the money of strangers, as well as to entice these strangers into letting both him and his mother into their homes. Nicholas's affinity for singing was of course foreshadowed in episode 1, when Agatha goes into Nicky's room and looks over at his imaginary first place award for best vocals in children's concert choir. However, not wanting to kill any more people that day, Nicky decides to head home instead, to his mother's dismay. But she quickly forgives him, and the two of them sing before lying asleep on the ground together for the very last time. Death would then come like a thief in the night to finally take Nicholas Scratch away from Agatha, causing Agatha to deeply mourn the loss of her son while singing the Ballad of the Witch's Road over his grave. A witch nearby would hear Agatha singing and ask if she actually knew where the Witch's Road actually was, inspiring Agatha to start scamming witches with the song itself by getting them all to assemble a coven before ultimately draining those covens of their magic over the course of centuries, causing Agatha to transition from the mother phase of her life to the crone phase, as she would become a crone after adding centuries to her life with this soul-sucking method, until one day the road would actually manifest itself through the sheer belief of one Billy Maximoff. Then we are brought back to the very ending of episode 8 with the appearance of Ghost Agatha Harkness in Billy's room, finally rocking the gray hair of her comic book counterpart and actually looking her age. And judging by how Agatha's ghost form is unable to interact with elements of the physical world, it appears that the only way Billy could ever give Agatha a high five or a hug ever again is through having a soul astral projected out of his body, like the Ancient One did for Doctor Strange and Doctor Strange did for Spider-Man, because Agatha is now an astral being. And then when Agatha reveals to Billy that he did in fact create the road, Billy gets launched into a sea of guilt, feeling directly responsible for the deaths of Sharon Davis, Alice Wu Gulliver, and Lilia Calderu, which is technically true. But Agatha does remind him that he did also save the life of Jennifer Cale, who we see emerge under the orange glow of the sun outside Westview before flying away. Then Billy decides to make his way back to Westview to Agatha's old basement, where Billy attempts to banish Agatha from this mortal plane using Agatha's brooch. But before Billy can finish his banishment spell, Agatha finally admits that the reason why she doesn't want to move on is because she doesn't know how to face Nicholas again, especially after spending centuries using his song to suck the lives out of countless witches. But Billy assures Agatha that Nicky would forgive him regardless of Agatha's past, a comforting quality that Agatha says Billy shares with her own son. But then Agatha proposes that she actually stick around in her ghost form to help Billy with his journey to master his powers and to find his brother Tommy, with the series ending with the two of them forming an unlikely coven. Now, with Billy and Agatha on their way to finally find a Tommy with a human body, the question still remains: where in the world is Tommy San Diego? And when could we possibly see this teenage mutant twinja speedster zoom his ass back into the MCU? Well, instead of building a life in Eastview, New Jersey like Billy did, Tommy could now just be chillin' as a little badass kid in Springfield, New Jersey, possibly as the son of the divorced Frank and Mary Shepard, because that's exactly what we learned happened to him in the pages of 2006's Young Avengers number 10 and 11. And during Tommy's time as part of the Shepard family, he would commit crime after crime and would find himself in juvie for most of his teenage years, until one day, Tommy would accidentally vaporize his entire high school as a side effect of his ability to generate hyperkinetic vibrations with his body. Vibrations that have the ability to overexcite the molecules of whatever he comes into contact with at high speeds, causing those molecules to eventually explode. And because of this, when Tommy makes his first appearance in Young Avengers number 10, the Young Avengers have to free Tommy from a high-security prison where he was secretly being poked and prodded by scientists in order for them to try to remake Tommy into a powerful weapon under their control, much like we saw S.W.O.R.D. attempting to do with Vision in WandaVision. So, because of this, if Marvel Studios continues to follow the comic books for inspiration, then we might very likely see Tommy appear next in the Young Avengers project that was teased at the very end of the Marvels, likely with the MCU Young Avengers also initiating a prison break as a result of Miss Marvel discovering Tommy's imprisonment through her access to Nick Fury's files on potential Avengers recruits. And if any organization is going to have Tommy imprisoned, it's going to very likely be the assholes down at S.W.O.R.D., because they are the sentient weapon observation and response division after all, and Tommy technically fits the definition of a sentient weapon. And since S.W.O.R.D. lost control of their white vision years ago, taking in Tommy Maximoff, especially after he demonstrated his incredible powers against those S.W.O.R.D. agents in the Westview Hex, would be a pretty great consolation prize for them. I mean, if what Billy said is true, and Tommy Shepard truly doesn't have any family waiting for him back home, then any sketchy organization could theoretically do whatever they wanted to him if they wanted to. However, there's also a possibility that we could see Tommy make his first MCU appearance as a teenager in the upcoming Vision Quest TV show, partly as a symbolic gesture due to Vision being the one who gave Tommy his name in the first place in episode 3 of Wandavision. Not only this, but Tommy appears to have also inherited his father's super speed as part of his own power set, so Tommy being reincarnated in a speedster-centric show would be symbolically appropriate, much like it was appropriate for Billy to be reincarnated in a magic-centric TV show closely tied to his magic mother, Wanda Maximoff, who named him Billy because her boo-boo Vision liked William Shakespeare. But regardless of what project we actually see Tommy appear in next, expect to see his ass pop up real damn soon as Marvel Studios continues to introduce more members of the Young Avengers team for the inevitable crossover event. But while we reflect on the end of this new season, we also gotta think about the witch that started the whole shebang-a-bang, Wanda Maximoff. Because where is that silly-ass witch at? I mean, we do know there's a good chance that she's alive somewhere in the MCU, especially since this show kept teasing us with the possibility, so like, given what we know about the future of Marvel's slate, what are the next projects that we could possibly see the Scarlet Witch return in so that she can continue her super tragic narrative? Well, the most likely project that we might see Wanda Maximoff again in is, of course, in the Vision Quest Disney Plus show that is well on the way. According to Vision actor Paul Bettany, who is super excited about the project, Vision Quest is going to be one of the Marvel Studios productions starting up next year in 2025. And as most of you already know, Vision Quest is going to be yet another narrative spin-off from 2021's Wandavision, with us catching up with what White Vision has been up to in the 3 to 4 years since Hex Vision radically altered White Vision's mind and seemingly freed him from his control by the assholes down at S.W.O.R.D. And since White Vision is pretty much the only version of Vision that Wanda has left, there is a chance that we could see Wanda Maximoff show up at some point in Vision Quest to try to see if she can fix her favorite adult toy herself. Because real dolls are expensive and nobody wants to give Wanda a sexy time credit card after what her crazy ass did to New Jersey. I mean, Wanda did likely get a big time power boost after absorbing a bunch of energy out of America Chavez, much like she got a big time power boost after absorbing a bunch of mind energy in Wakanda. So maybe restoring Vision by herself could be a possibility now. And not only this, but while we don't know much about the plot of Vision Quest yet, there have been rumors that James Spader will be returning as Ultron for Vision Quest in some way or fashion, which is incredibly exciting because James Spader was legit the best part of Avengers Age of Ultron. I mean, yeah, he was a little bit of a robo-yapper, but nobody can say that Robert California wasn't constantly spitting bars in that movie. But since Ultron did have a strong attachment to the Scarlet Witch in the Age of Ultron, there could be a chance that we could see Wanda Maximoff make a quick cameo in a flashback sequence to her time with Ultron at the very least. But again, there is also the chance that we could see Vision and Wanda reunite by the very end of Vision Quest, possibly at the very end of Vision's quest of self-discovery. However, Vision is not the only person that Wanda Maximoff has been drawn towards in the Marvel Comics, because she has also had a history with another man that is also getting his own Disney Plus show very soon. Marvel Studios' Wonder Man stars Yahya Abdul-Mateen as the titular hero, and it's a show that is actually in the post-production phase, as filming for Wonder Man has wrapped earlier this year, which means that Wonder Man could be coming out relatively soonish. And like I alluded to before, Wonder Man, aka Simon Williams, and Wanda Maximoff have had a little bit of a brief romantic fling in the comics, so there is a chance that we could see Wanda enter a bit of a rebound relationship with Simon during the events of this show before ultimately leaving Simon for Vision. And if for some odd reason we don't see the Scarlet Witch pop up at all in any of these projects, we can 100% expect her to appear during the multiverse saga ending Avengers films Doomsday and Secret Wars, as those films are very much expected to be an all-hands-on-deck affair with pretty much every major Marvel character in Marvel cinematic history. But not only that, but since Secret Wars is a narrative specifically about a coming Doomsday for the entire Marvel cosmos, this apocalypse could very well tie into the overall prophecy of the Scarlet Witch, a prophecy that sees Wanda either ruling the cosmos or causing its very destruction. Since Wanda has yet to fulfill this prophecy, there is a strong chance that we'll eventually see this prophecy play out over the course of these two films. I could definitely see a scenario where Doctor Doom convinces Wanda to help him reshape reality in order to save the multiverse from the incursions, thus making Wanda the destroyer of the old multiverse and the ruler of Doom's new multiversal order. But however it happens, Wanda is sure to play a big role in the end of the saga, no doubt. But we also cannot forget to mention that Wanda Maximoff could be getting her own solo film proper, with an extra emphasis on could, because there has not yet been any official announcements from Marvel about anything like that just yet. But there have been reports coming out of sources like Production Weekly that point to Jack Schaefer returning to write a Scarlet Witch movie with Marvel Studios. But whether or not this movie will take place before or after the events of Secret Wars is anyone's guess. But do you know who wasn't anywhere near this finale? Sacha Baron Cohen as Mephisto, as such an appearance has been heavily rumored for months now, and it's an appearance that would have been quite fitting for a narrative centered around the Maximoff family. But since the character is still rumored to appear in the Ironheart series next year, I figured now would be a great time to drop some Mephisto knowledge on my beautiful nerd babies. For those of you who don't know for whatever reason, Mephisto is one of the darkest and most powerful demons in Marvel Comics. And just by the way he looks and carries himself, it's not hard to see why he's oftentimes mistaken for Satan himself. But that isn't actually the case. While Mephisto doesn't mind if the humans he comes into contact with want to assign him with the label of the biblical Satan, he actually cannot factually claim that title, nor can any of the vast amount of demon kings in Marvel Comics. Because much like there are multiple gods of light, hope, and order in the Marvel cosmos with authority over their various realms, like we see with Odin and Asgard, as well as Zeus and Olympus, there are also multiple demon kings of darkness, fear, and chaos with domains of their own that they rule. Demon kings such as Marduk Kyrios, Shumagorath, Satanish, Sitarak, Chthon, Dormammu, and Surtur, just to name a few. And while many of these demon kings may walk around claiming to be the true Satan, none of them actually have the balls to officially take the title by sitting on the throne of Satan themselves. No, but for real, while each of these demon kings do have thrones that they sit on as they rule over their own separate dark dimensions, there's actually a separate realm called the Devil's Advocacy, where all of these demons sometimes meet up to have meetings of great cosmic importance. And at the very center of the Devil's Advocacy realm is a giant throne reserved for the one and true Satan. A throne that none of the demon lords would ever dare to claim out of fear of instantaneously getting attacked and vaporized by the other demon kings who feel like they deserve that ultimate title for themselves. But anyways, despite not being the ultimate devil of Marvel Comics, like most people assume that he is, Mephisto is still an incredibly powerful and immortal force of chaos who can warp matter and reality at will. However, the catch is, all of that crazy level of power is directly tied to his dark pocket dimension that he likes to call Hell, despite this realm not actually being the real Hell due to him not being the real Satan. Mephisto and his home realm are directly linked to one another. So much so that when Mephisto steps outside of his realm, he begins to get weaker and weaker until he returns back home. But as long as Mephisto's tank is not at empty, he's still able to wreak as much havoc as he can while collecting as many souls that he can. Getting people to sign away their souls is Mephisto's main MO after all, because the more souls that Mephisto brings into his realm, the stronger that he becomes. And this MO makes sense considering where the name Mephisto Mephisto comes from. The character of Mephistopheles was introduced in the year 1587 as part of a piece of German folklore regarding a man named Dr. Faustus who makes a deal with this demon Mephistopheles in exchange for his very soul. And much like Dr. Faustus, a number of folks in the Marvel Comics universe have made the foolish decision of entering soul-binding deals with this King of Chaos. People like Cynthia Von Doom, the mother of Dr. Victor Von Doom, who once gave her soul to Mephisto in exchange for the cosmic power to fight back against those who made her life a living hell. But unfortunately for Cynthia, this meant that her afterlife was going to be even more of an unliving hell, as Mephisto would subsequently torture her soul for what he planned to be forever and ever. And when Victor Von Doom grew up, in order to save his mother, he would actually start making annual trips to Mephisto's realm in order to forcefully get Mephisto to free his mother from her torment. But unfortunately for Doom, he would never be able to beat Mephisto no matter how many times he tried by himself. But eventually, in the pages of 1989's Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom Triumph in Torment #1, Doom would put his pride aside and enlist the help of Doctor Strange. And together they were able to free Cynthia from her afterlife of torture to be able to move on to an afterlife of peace. Mephisto is also famously at the very root of the origin of Ghost Rider in the Marvel Comics, as Johnny Blaze would become the Ghost Rider after making a deal with Mephisto to save the life of his cancer-ridden stepdad. But since Mephisto was a sketchy bitch, he would prevent Johnny's girlfriend's dad from dying of cancer by having him die from a motorcycle stunt gone horrifically wrong instead. And since a deal is still a deal, Mephisto would arrive to collect Johnny's soul, but would be surprised banished by Johnny's girlfriend Roxanne. However, right before Mephisto is banished, he yeets the essence of a demon of vengeance named Zarathos into Johnny's body, causing Johnny to become the Ghost Rider whenever Zarathos took control of Johnny's physical form. And then another time, in the pages of 1989's Avengers West Coast 51, Mephisto would even be responsible for the birth of Tommy and Billy Maximoff, as both of their souls were apparently formed from pieces of Mephisto by their mother, the Scarlet Witch. But when Mephisto returned those souls back into his own essence, Wanda had Agatha Harkness erase her memory of both Billy and Tommy so that she could cope with the loss of her twins. But luckily for Wanda, Billy and Tommy would end up getting reincarnated into fresh new bodies of their own, of course. But the most famous bit of Mephisto meddling in Marvel history comes in the form of Mephisto erasing Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson's future timeline, where they get married and have a red-headed daughter in exchange for the life of Peter's old-ass Aunt May during the dreaded One More Day storyline from 2007. This is pretty much the story that elevated Mephisto into an entity worth hating and paying attention to in the eyes of everyone, as pretty much every Spider-Man fan despised Marvel's decision to end Spider-Man's relationship with Mary Jane this way. But it would end up being revealed that Mephisto only did this to prevent Peter and Mary Jane's daughter from defeating him in the future, which she was destined to do. But anyways, that's pretty much Mephisto in a very generalized nutshell. Not the devil per se, but still a really powerful trickster demon of chaos that enjoys watching people suffer before stealing their souls, because souls make him more powerful. But despite not being Marvel's Satan outright, Mephisto's introduction as a factor on MCU Earth is most likely going to usher in some real problems for the MCU heroes in the future. Not only because of Mephisto's rumored involvement in the Ironheart series as an influence on the series' main antagonist, the Hood, played by Anthony Ramos, but it also paves the way for Marvel Studios to finally introduce their take on the Ghost Rider mythos, which is super exciting, as Mephisto is of course centric to Ghost Rider's origin in both the comics as well as the two Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movies from 2007 and 2011 respectively. Sacha Baron Cohen is following the footsteps of Peter Fonda, who played Mephisto in the first Ghost Rider movie, as well as actor Ciarán Hinds, who played Mephisto in the second Ghost Rider movie. Overall, Agatha All Along was a fantastic program that I thoroughly enjoyed from start to finish. The entire cast was expertly assembled, and they all put on such fun and memorable performances, especially Catherine Hahn, Patti LuPone, and Aubrey Plaza. Seeing all these witches evolve over the course of their journey was extremely satisfying to see, and I truly love when Marvel Studios takes D-list characters like Alice Wu Gulliver, Jennifer Kale, and Lilia Calderu and mold them into flawed, multidimensional people that you grow to actually care about. Not only this, but I thoroughly enjoyed how this show went out of their way to use practical effects as much as they could, because that did a lot to making the Witch's Road feel like an actual real forest of freakiness Harkness, rather than a bunch of people constantly surrounded by CG elements in a big old green screen room. If I were to have any complaints about this series, it would probably be that I kind of wish that we got to see more of the Westview neighbors incorporated into the actual Witches Road trials. I mean, yeah, it was nice to see them all cameo in the first episode, but it would have been nice to see them all thrust into another witchy-ass scenario against their will. But I guess the people of Westview have endured enough witch trauma for one lifetime. I also kind of feel like the Salem 7 were kind of super weak-ass villains this season. I mean, you would think that since these 7 were the children of witches that Agatha Harkness killed in the past, that we would get to see how Agatha's actions affected these witches on an emotional level, but nope, they just were a group of creepy-ass emo animal ladies sent by Death to kill Agatha, and that's all. No real background, and no memorable fighting action sequences from them at all. They kind of just followed the witches around until Lilia finally turned them all into witch kebabs. It's kind of lame, but honestly, not really that big of a deal. They served their purpose, so I guess at the end of the day, it's fine. I'm just saying that the Salem 7 from the comics are way more interesting than what we got here in live action. But those are just minor nitpicks. All in all, this show really freaking ruled, and it was a big time treat for fans of Wandavision like myself, who have been craving the mysterious witchy atmosphere of that incredible show. Everybody involved in this production did an incredible job, and Marvel should definitely invest in the mystical side of the MCU more with additional character-driven projects like these. But yeah, that's it for this breakdown of episodes 8 and 9 of Agatha All Along. What did you guys think of this series as a whole? Let us know in the comment section down below. We want to hear it. But like always, you guys can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, YouTube, wherever I am on the internet. But most importantly, you can follow Heavy Spoilers here by hitting that subscribe button and hitting the notification bell to get notifications for every time we upload a video. And do not forget to hit up the Heavy Spoilers store to pick up some really sweet Heavy Spoilers merch for your body. But regardless of what you do, you guys are amazing for watching this video. I love you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.